Good morning and welcome to Live with Lutz, community update for Friday, September 24th, 2021. I'm actually here at the construction trailer on the site of the new elementary school. You can see behind me, so I can position this a little better. It's quite a very active job site right now. What you see is three excavators or more probably. They're continuing the demolition. They're sitting on this part of the site near the cafeteria, probably closer to the office area, and then even coming this way a little bit where the loading dock and some of the kindergarten classrooms were. So they're continuing the slab, the tear out of the slab, breaking up all the concrete. That's a lot of the noise that you hear. You see all these pipes sticking out of the ground, and that's involved with the mine stabilization. So drilling and for the grouting, the grouting that's all going to go underneath the building to make sure that the foundations are stable and remain stable for the lifetime of this building. So there's about 100 or more of we see these green pipes sticking out of the ground, and of course there's the large drilling machine up there on the hill that is drilling about 100 feet into the ground to put all these pipes in, and the grouting will begin in about a week or so. But you can really see how active the site is. All of the debris is gone. Lots of piles of dirt. If I'd actually walk over to the football field, you would see a lot of the grass excavated and prepping for that roadway over there as well. So let me transition back inside. So the district does have a space here for meeting at the site. So it's a very homely construction trailer, and not much in here. So if the echo today is kind of bad, I apologize, because it's actually just a big box. And so once again, just talking about the new school and give you a bit of an update. We are having bi-weekly meetings with architects, contractors, just going through updates. Again, they're removing the old slab, and the window behind me, sorry if there's a bit of a glare, but removing the old slab and finalizing the painter school demolition. And again, the slab was not part of the initial phases of demolition, because anything that would have disturbed the earth was saved until really the construction phase. And so as they're pulling that up, what you may hear, especially if you live close to the building, and of course you'll hear that clutter of the breaking up of the slab. But then they're also crushing the slab. There's a large machine out near Pleasant View Drive that you couldn't see from when I was standing outside, that they're actually crushing the slab into an aggregate that will be reused in the new school building. And so you think about some green processes. That's absolutely one. It probably saves money. You're not bringing in additional limestone or gravel or things of that nature. But to get to that point, it's noisy. There is a large water jet. Almost can liken it to something that you would see on Seven Springs on the slopes when they're making snow. But there's a large water jet there that basically just it's constantly raining on that part of the site to control the dust and to make sure that we're being as good of neighbors as we can be around here. I know it is a very noisy site. It's a very active site right now. When they do begin the mine stabilization grouting, again, you saw all those green pipes sticking out of the grouting. And that's about a 4-inch pipe. They're drilling about 100 feet down, give or take. Different holes are of different depths, and that's all controlled and based upon information that we've received during the testing and all the boring tests that have happened already. So we're really drilling deep enough that we can find the voids that exist under the building. In the entire neighborhood and most of southwestern Pennsylvania has been mined, and coal mines exist everywhere. So through the work that we have already done, we know that there are mines under the existing building or the existing location. The building was very stable. There were no settlement cracks in the old painter building. But just to be sure, because we are building a 3-story building, about the same footprint, but a 3-story building, I think it's really just prudent to make sure that we take the measures that we can to ensure that there are no settlement issues there. Once all the holes are dug, and I think they are working towards completion of that, because again, the site is pretty marked with those pipes. Once they are all dug, the grouting process will then commence. And grouting is really a massive operation. An incredible amount of material will be brought onto the site. So the truck traffic in this neighborhood will be significant. And so we do manage the activity between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. I know that's early, especially if you live very close to the building. But literally hundreds of trucks will be bringing in materials for the grouting. And the grouting process is expected to be completed by the end of October. And then once we're done there, the next steps will be footers, and then only then will you start to see some of the new building rising out of the ground. So there's a lot of work that you don't see that's below ground, or at least even with the ground at this point. And so only once we get that far along will you start to see essentially progress on the new building and something with elevation. And so exciting, a little nerve-wracking, but definitely exciting. Let's go on to some shout outs. And so first, read in the paper this morning in the Trib Live, a shout out to Mr. Bruce Altemus, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Altemus. He's a Baldwin resident, 69 years of age. But the article is, to me, quite compelling. For those of us that don't get off the couch enough, Bruce should be our hero. A few years ago, he was 300 pounds, multiple health issues, multiple ailments, wheelchair bound, and also had significant liver issues. Lost a bunch of weight, liver transplant, started to be active. On Sunday, Bruce will run the Pittsburgh Great Race. That's a 3.1 mile race through Pittsburgh, and many of the members of his transplant team and others that have helped him in his pursuit of healthiness will be running alongside of Bruce. And so congratulations to you, Mr. Altemus. Really so inspiring for those that, I'll speak for myself, that do not get and be active enough, and the things that you've been able to do and to make sure that you can continue to live a very healthy life. So congratulations, sir. Received a shout out in the form of a question, but a shout out too about our building subs. And I think that as we talk about employee shortages throughout the course of this year, and we will continue to talk about that probably all year long, it's harder and harder to find folks that want to substitute. And I understand why. Even though we've increased pay, subs are not paid incredibly well. Oftentimes, they're not respected very well either. And that's something we all can improve, because when a sub walks in the door, the reaction of most kids, at least some kids, and let's be honest with all of ourselves, we all did it. When the teacher was out and a sub walked in, we thought, wow, this is going to be a different type of day, good or bad, a different type of day. Let's just be honest with ourselves. But we are doing some things to improve the pay of our subs. So before I get into the shout out, let me put a little plug in for anyone who wants to be a substitute. We do pay probably higher than most in the area. We pay $125 a day, but we also created a different type of plan. So subs that work for us, at least, I think the number's 40 out of 45 days per 9 weeks will get a $1,000 bonus. And so we're really trying to attract subs. We want those who are coming to work for us and with us to stay with us and be a constant presence within our schools. And so essentially throughout the course of the year, if folks work with us 160 out of the 181 days, that's an additional $4,000 bonus, $1,000 each quarter. And so if you have somebody that wants to sub, or if you have either a 2-year degree, or you could be a teacher, like a guest teacher program, there's multiple ways that folks can substitute. You do not need an education degree in order to do so. But please reach out to my office, reach out to Mrs. Sprouse, who is our Director of Employee Services. And if it's something that you'd be interested in helping out, there is definitely a space for you. But we employ building subs. Sometimes we call them our super subs because they work every day for us. They're there every day, and they don't have to sit and wait for that 5 a.m. phone call. But this particular shout out excuse me, the teacher was out for another week, and the parent had to give the heads up to their daughter about the substitute being there for another week. And the daughter has nothing but praise for this teacher, and the teacher named Miss M, and said has great fun and she's a great teacher. Children love their building subs as much as their regular teachers. Please shout out praise for all Harrison building subs, and I'll say all district wide. They are there for our kids too, and I'm sure this goes for our entire district's building subs, and thank you. So while we know all of our employees are critical, and you've heard me talk about that, every element of our day where a child interacts with an adult is really important, from the first exposure and experience with the bus driver, all the way through the course of the day, with teachers, substitutes, noontime aides, cafeteria staff, and then of course the bus driver on the way home as well. All of the adults within the school district contribute to either the success or lack of success for each day, and really that experience for what kids will have. I have another shout out too, and it goes to our nurses. Our nurses have been tracking an incredible amount of cases so far this year. So from, I think it's August 26th, if that date rings true in my head, 431 issues that they're tracking. They could be positive cases of COVID, close contacts, or other matters, but requiring basically the tracking and the coordination of 431 cases, details, just things that are happening. And while they're doing that, they're also maintaining the health and safety of the students in the school. So you figure just normal illnesses, medications, ensuring that students that receive medication while they're in school, that happens as it should. And then there's the typical bumps and bruises of a school day, especially at the elementary level when the children are outside and on recess, or at recess, excuse me. Just all the typical things that happen that keep nurses fully active and employed full time before we even had something called COVID enter our schools. And now they're doing all of it. And we are looking for ways to support them. It's just slow. It's very slow sledding. And it's tough because there are not a lot of folks out there. I think every superintendent I've talked to is looking for a nurse. And so it is challenging. And so the shout out goes to them, the hours that our nurses are putting in, evenings, weekends. And I can see that. I saw an email the other day. I swear it said 3:26 a.m. Now, please tell me someone just had some insomnia. Please tell me that they weren't working all night long or all morning long. But when an email was being sent at 3:26, all I can simply say is these folks really care about your kids, and it shows, and it really shows. So a cafeteria update. You talk about caring for kids. I know last week we had a comment about cafeteria, and it was not as complimentary. And then we talked about that as far as what really was. It was actually a good thing. Maybe it was a good thing in disguise. But I can tell you, that cafeteria continues to be in the news. So there's a cafeteria or a food and supply shortage that's happening within our food industry, and walk any aisle in Giant Eagle or Shop and Save or wherever you do that type of shopping, and you see that for yourself. So it would probably be naive to think that it wouldn't happen or wouldn't be within our schools. In fact, when I talked to Mrs. Weber, it's probably going to affect our schools even more, because school cafeteria supply chain, and when you think about where that fits in the grand scheme of things, it's usually pretty low because profit margins there are less. They're more governed by regulations. And so when suppliers are looking to fill out their orders, school cafeterias aren't real high on that list. And that's a shame. But we know there's been a couple articles that these stations have picked up. We sent out some skyward messaging earlier this week. And our goal there was really to make sure that you as parents and the community were informed as to what was happening in the cafeterias. Because we don't want kids coming through the door, especially our little ones, being upset that maybe they thought they did something wrong by not ordering the right thing. Because if menus have to be changed, those are some very important things to kids. And so we've sent out that messaging. Of course, the news media picked up on that, and WPXI did a story with Mr. Cherpak the other day, and WTAE came out yesterday. So I don't know if they're just slow news days. This is really a great news story, but Carrie Butler, our PR specialist, really does connect us well with the media. And my attitude is if you treat the media very well when times are good, times will be bad at some point, and so maybe they'll treat us better when our time in the bucket comes, or our time in the barrel comes. But within the cafeteria, they're working to improvise. They're adjusting. Menus may be different. It's just going to be a case of what's available and what they can pull together. And we're trying to take care of the youngest children and try to keep some stability on those menus, because they may understand less as to what's going on around them. And in cafeteria, the lunch experience is very important to all ages, but especially the youngest ones. So menus may be different. We're still expecting to have food. It just may not be what you expected to have on the menu. We're hearing 4 to 6 weeks for this to correct itself from a supply chain. I don't know. That might even be a little bit too optimistic, and it may even be longer than that. So we do ask for your patience, your understanding as we work through this. I'm not sure I would have thought a few weeks ago we'd be talking about cafeteria shortages due to COVID. And we were working through bus drivers and transportation and masking and all of those things. But I guess maybe it fits that we're talking about that as well. A couple other COVID updates. One is an updated mask guidelines. I apologize looking to the side because I have 2 computers set up here, because being in the trailer here this morning on the job site, I didn't have my notes printed out for me. But there's an updated mask guidelines that have been distributed from Allegheny County Health Department just yesterday. And so there's a question in and around the use of face coverings that are mesh. We've not had that in the Baldwin School District. I know some of my superintendent friends have said that they have been dealing with mesh face masks. I'm not sure if that's coming out of some of the things that have been more politically charged, where there was a state level representative, I think that's what it was, in one of the southern states using a mesh mask. We've not had that, but there's new guidance that comes out, and let me read it. That the Pennsylvania Department of Health mask order for schools defines face coverings as a covering of the nose and the mouth with material that is secured to the head with ties, straps, or loops over the ears, or is wrapped around the lower face. A face covering can be made of a variety of synthetic or natural fabrics, including cotton, silk, or linen. A face covering may be factory made, sewn by hand, or be improvised from household items, including but not limited to scarves, bandanas, t-shirts, sweatshirts, or towels. We've not seen that either. Folks, a lot of the kids are wearing masks, and you bought masks for your children that have some different imagery, cartoon characters, designs on them, really trying to make it somewhat enjoyable out of an uncomfortable situation. But it goes on, some individuals have taken this to mean that masks can have holes in them. The CDC defines an effective mask as those with 2 or more layers of washable, breathable fabric that fits snugly against the sides of the face. It goes on to talk a little more. But here's a part, and I think that we get confused or conflicting information about how effective masks are and why they're effective. And it goes on to say, cloth masks and surgical masks allow CO2 escape into the air through the mask when you breathe in, breathe out, or talk. CO2 molecules are small enough to easily pass through cloth and surgical mask material. This is in contrast to the virus that causes the COVID-19, which is much larger than CO2, so it cannot pass as easily through a properly designed and properly worn mask. And so kind of getting into the second part of that, because people say, well, masks don't work. Well, one of the questions today is, where are we seeing COVID cases? And I'll tell you where we're not seeing them. We're not seeing anything coming out of the classroom. So if masks didn't work, I would have to say, and maybe it's either inductive or deductive thinking, you decide, but if masks weren't working, but yet we have children at 3 feet of space all day long in the classroom, and we're not seeing the close contact, or we're not seeing the virus spread out of a classroom setting, then I would have to offer a contradictory opinion and say that they are working. Just one more update on COVID, just where we are with district cases. Again, as I said earlier, the nurses are tracking 431 issues of COVID or contact tracing or something similarly or connected to that since August. It is significantly higher than where we were at this time last year, significantly higher. So what they do and what the nurses do, because this is really tied into a question that's coming up a little bit later. The nurses track the conditions and the circumstances. So when they are having those conversations with parents or with students if they're older, they ask about the location, classrooms, cafeterias, and we are seeing some out of the cafeterias. We're not seeing the classroom spread unless we're dealing with situations, and we've had like within some of our special education classrooms and things of that nature where children and adults are very close because of the nature of the support needed. Masks may or may not be worn in those circumstances. So I'm not saying that there have been zero cases involving classrooms, but they are significantly less. Cafeterias is one area of concern for us, just simply because the spacing and the lack of masks. But what we're also seeing, and the nurses are seeing, a large number of cases that are resulting from community activities. And I'm not here saying that children should not participate in community activities, but are there things that we can do that might be a little bit safer there? Whether that's the community sports, the athletics, things of that nature. But it is happening. This week we had cases that happened K to 12, and I'll say that literally. It was both ends and not the middle. So we had kindergarten, we had first grade, we had third grade, and then we had, I hope no one's coming through the door. There's just a lot of noise happening around here, but sorry for being distracted. Literally kindergarten, first, third grade, I think it was fifth grade, and then we also had some high school, and not much in the middle. So it is happening K to 12, literally K and 12, again, but not much in the middle. And it seems like week to week, it can be different than that. There are some county patterns that we're seeing as well. September, they saw huge increases in cases in school for school-age children. So let me jump to a PDF that shares that information and read a few numbers to you. So from July through September, and you would expect July numbers were a lot smaller. We weren't in school yet. But this is the 5 to 12-year-old age. In July, there were 90 cases. In August, there were 543. And so far in September, that number has nearly doubled to 913. The 13 to 18-year-old groupings, 94 cases in July, 365 in August, a little lower than the 5 through 12. Maybe it's the vaccine, maybe it's not. I'm not going to guess on that. And then in September, it went from 365 in August to 525 in September. So from 94 up to 525 for the 13 through 18-year-olds. And then the 19 through 24, you think about those of us who have kids in college, they're seeing big gains there as well. So 168 in July, 746 in August, but down to 631 in September. Now, by contrast, what are we seeing with the older groups? So like 25 to 49, 600 in July, 2,935. So just about 3,000 in August, and then 2,700 in September. So relatively flat, if not decreasing. The 50 to 64 years of age, actually nearly exactly flat, 1,124 in August, 1,100 in September. The 65 years of age plus, again, nearly flat, 848 in August, 832 in September. So the school-age children, and I guess it really is rightfully so, kids are in school, the density, the concentration of kids and the spaces that we can occupy are limited. And so across the county, you're seeing doubling or more of some of those cases. Jump back out of that sheet. Jumping away from the COVID topic, and actually, we actually are still doing education and still doing some great things. The Baldwin School District has been invited to attend a program called Learning 2025. It's a program that is actually brought forward through the American Association of School Administrators, or AASA. And it's incredibly supported locally by the Grable Foundation. As you know, we've been so blessed to be a partner with Grable for so many years on so many different projects. But Grable has really bought into this Learning 2025 platform, and it is so consistent with things that we have been working on and with throughout the course of COVID, prior to COVID, and where we want to go as a Baldwin School District. Let me read just a couple of paragraphs off of the AASA site in regard to Learning 2025. It's characterized as it's leadership to transform America's education systems. Learning 2025, student-centered, equity-focused education is an AASA initiative that calls for the holistic redesign of the public school system by 2025. The initiative is grounded in the foundational work of the AASA Learning 2025 National Commission, comprised of thought leaders in education, business, community, and philanthropy. Um, and it goes on with, again, a little call for action. The time for action is now. Schools must operate as the heartbeat of the country that we want and that we believe in, a country where freedom, justice, and opportunity are extended to everyone without question, qualification, or exception. The recent pandemic has given us an opportunity to finally reshape schools to meet all whole learner needs for maximized achievement. We're calling on educators to seize this opportunity to realize the vision of holistic school redesign. I couldn't say it better myself, but of course, knowing me, I have a few words to talk about that in regard. I fully agree. You've heard me say that we're in probably the greatest transformative age of education that we'll see in our lifetimes, and our kids may see in theirs as well. If we fail to seize this opportunity, then it's our own fault. Um, Schools should be places that where children can receive education nearly anytime, anywhere, and that doesn't even mean physically in school. So what does that mean? We're dabbling in the remote learner experience now. So what does that look like for today, and what does that look like for tomorrow? What does that look like for professional development, school to work type of initiatives? There are just so many things that fit into the work that we are doing and need to be doing in this area. And if we don't, the competition is great. Um, when I grew up, it was come to the public school. Painter would have been my public school, or go to St. Albert's. And basically here for a North Baldwin Churchill Avenue kid, that's where you went to school. Homeschool, I'm not even sure I ever had heard that expression, being homeschooled. The idea of charter, never heard of that. That didn't come into being until much later, and even once I was in my professional career. But now the competition is great. As you heard me say, or hear me say about even our transportation department, we're transporting to nearly 50 schools within a 10-mile radius of this district. So inside the district and up to a 10-mile radius. I could say when we were a kid, or when I was a kid, there might have been 5 schools that I would have been eligible to go to: St. Albert, St. Elizabeth, St. Gabriel's, Painter. When I was a kindergartner, I went to McGivney right up the street. But that's not the case anymore. Either we look to transform what we do, how we do it, or folks will, and they'll want our children, and rightfully so, they should take them. If we're not doing what we need to do, then they should take our children. But I think we are in a great position, a great phase to do this work, and it fits timely and perfectly into where I want to be with our strategic planning committee. I'm a little slower out of the gate with this than I thought I wanted to be, but maybe it's working out for the best. Throughout the course of the summer, I know I have I think about 110 people that have signed up to be part of the strategic planning process, which is just an incredible number, and I'm excited about that. I was slow to move during the course of the summer because it's just so hard to bring people together for the summer because of vacation schedules and other things, and then COVID and the planning to try to get school open really started to magnify, and efforts were focused there. But we're in, I think, a great spot to start working on that plan and really partner that with this Learning 2025 initiative, and really do some great things for the students and the community within the Baldwin Whitehall School District. So I am excited about it, and I really look forward to it. You'll be getting, if anyone who was on the strategic plan committee who signed up, there will be an update coming out with some dates for our initial meetings. We'll probably start those to be virtually, and then break into some subcommittees, and subcommittees could meet virtually or in person. really trying to meet your schedules because we have teachers, we have parents, whether they're caregivers or at home, whether they have a work schedule outside of the home, and just other community members that are retired. So it's really a very diverse group that I look forward to working with. Okay, let's jump into some of the questions. So the first question, because of kids needing to stay home more often, anytime they feel unwell, quarantines and such, am I to assume that the over 10-day truancy rule will not apply this year? By week 2 of school, my child was absent for 3 days with a cold as we awaited negative COVID test results. That's a great point. I had the nurses last week, I think it was the high school nurse, told me that she had to send 18 or 19 children home in one particular day because I think people are conflicted in this area, and I understand why. If you don't come to school and it's a repeat issue, then there's truancy rules and attendance rules that kick in. If you send your child to school sick, then everyone thinks the child has COVID or any kind of sniffling or sneezing or allergies or anything are interpreted as what they could be much worse. I think the key here is we have to continue to communicate. We have to understand, so please talk to the nurses, talk to your teachers, whether it's the written word, whether it's spoken, so that we understand what's going on. I'm a person, and the folks that work around me believe I always look for patterns. And so if there's a pattern of school avoidance for whatever reason, those things kind of surface pretty easily. Is someone, whether it's a child or whether it's an employee, are they sick every Monday? Are they sick every Monday after a late football game? Well, that's a whole different story. But are folks out on certain days of the week? Are we missing Fridays, or are we avoiding certain days? Or is there really not a pattern, and it's just a matter of true illness or sickness that's keeping folks home? I do believe that we need to be and will be more lenient on the 10-day truancy rule, and we will look for patterns. We will look for that communication. But also during times when there are COVID protocols in place, children can be coded as a quarantine, which essentially does not count towards an absentee type of progression. So let's just make sure that we're communicating with each other well, and I'm sure there'll be opportunities that we disagree on things, or we're viewing it from different aspects. But I think if we communicate well, we will be sure to come up with common ground. Next question, will the school district mandate students ages 5 to 11 to get the COVID vaccine when it's FDA approved? No, I don't believe that we have the authority to do so, and I'm not sure I would want the authority to do so. Right now, vaccines are not mandated for any age groups. There are schools that have, private schools have, but it's my understanding that when schools are working with public dollars, and of course the politics that go with public dollars, any type of mandate of this type just would not be met well and may not be legal. So from 12 years on up, we have been providing opportunities for vaccine. Mrs. Sprouse and her role as pandemic coordinator have been providing opportunities for vaccine clinics within our schools, and even when our local school districts, my buddies out there are doing things in their districts, they communicate with us, we communicate with them, and so we have those things available to us as well. When it is available from the 5 to 11 age group, within that grouping, we will continue to advertise and promote the opportunities to be vaccinated, should that be a personal and family decision that you want to go with. It's not my place to mandate that. There are 2 questions around mask breaks. Why are there not designated mask breaks scheduled every hour throughout the day? The children can only pull their masks down at outdoor recess and at lunch. There needs to be hourly small breaks for these young children, especially since they are distanced in their classroom. Well, there's a couple pieces to that question, and the next question is about masking as well, or mask breaks, excuse me. And same thing. I mean, I think the essence of the question is the same. Colder weather being upon us and the students being stuck inside, how can we incorporate these into the day? Well, a couple pieces there. I've seen teachers throughout the district institute mask breaks regularly. I can have a conversation with Mrs. Huffman and Mrs. Fleming-Salopek, the directors of education, to get more information on that. But the other side of that too is that, distance in their classroom, if a mask break would be instituted inside, it has to be at 6 feet of distance. And so with nearly 99% of our children back in school, that 6 feet of distance in a standard classroom probably doesn't exist. I mean, we've gone through it to measure at the 3-foot mark, but I've not done that at the 6-foot mark. But I would highly doubt that we have 6 feet of space to work within those classrooms. Of course, we have some of our larger areas, our gymnasiums, our cafeterias, atrium areas, and so forth within our schools. And we've encouraged the use of those for mask break opportunities, and we encourage it throughout the course of the day. But while we will offer guidance and our feedback, I really want to rely upon the teachers as the professional as to where they think that can happen safely and timely. And so we'll get some more information on that. But I'm not in a position to say you're required or you're mandated every hour, because I don't know what the circumstances are every hour in 300 classrooms across the district. What does it make sense to have them routinely throughout the day? Sure, it does. But I can't mandate that every 44 minutes or every hour that this can happen. But we'll go back and we'll just revisit philosophically that they need to happen. Question about what happened with the water main break. Why was a Skylar call not added for the early dismissal for the water main break? If my daughter hadn't used her cell phone to tell us, we wouldn't have known until later, and she would have been stranded outside of our house. When I first read that question, I thought of it differently than maybe it's typed. The specific word "call." I'll go back and look at the records. I know for sure that emails were sent, a notification push was sent. But I don't know whether the phone call feature of the technology was utilized that particular day. I was not in the office on Monday, and so all of these processes were picked up and done admirably by other folks. The call feature can be a little intimidating. I'm not sure many folks want to record their voices on things of that nature. You can type it as I do. I type it and it goes from typed to a speech through computer generated. But what I do know is that notices were sent out on Monday. Documentation. We received documentation of the emails that go out. It was on Facebook, Twitter messages. I've all went on a webpage. In fact, on this particular question, I don't know the timing of it, but we do have documentation of which families received the emails, and because some folks don't have email addresses in there, and then if the email's opened or not, we receive that notification, or we can look that up. In this particular case, the email was opened by the questioning person, but I don't know the timing of that. But in regard to the call, if the call feature was not added or was not utilized, the push notification, and what that means is on your cell phone, you'll get a notice that basically, in so many words, says check your email account associated to the school district because there's an important message there. So that type of message went out along with an email, Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. But I can check on the call feature, and if we need to do some additional training or what have you, by all means, we can do that. Next question. Why can't we have the middle school start time and the high school start time to be the same? That would eliminate one bus run and get the elementary students and the middle students to school on time. Boy, I wish we could. I wish we could. There are simply not enough seats and there's not enough seats, nor are there enough buses available during that time. And what really happens is that's actually two things that are happening. So there's not enough buses available to make the runs because the seats for the high school are nearly filled. Where we do have open seats, it's just simply not enough. We're bringing 750 or so 7th and 8th graders into the high school. There are not 750 available seats on those high school buses. The second piece, and it's actually not related to transportation at all, and it's really secondary, in nature, but it's real. At the high school, with the 1 period offset lunch schedule, we're able to run 4 lunch periods. So the high schoolers eat lunch 4th, 5th, and 6th period. The middle schoolers come in and eat lunch 5th, 6th, and 7th period. Otherwise, we would not be able to feed 2,200 children at one time at Baldwin High School. That wasn't the primary reason. Of course, it makes sense to have a staggered schedule. The primary reason we don't have them all there together is truly in and around enough seats on buses. Why can't the pre-K have in-person orientation, but the elementary middle school had in-person curriculum night? I have to assume that we're talking about the preschool program that's at Baldwin High School, related to the connection with with our seniors. Now they take the preschool class. There's not been any specific direction given as to whether they can or cannot do it in person. One factor that's related to that might just simply be that philosophically, and it's in our health and safety plan, that we will reduce visitors only to the essential visitors during the course of the school day. And so if that was the case where the open house would want to be done, or the meet the teacher night or orientation would want to be during the day, our philosophy is to really to protect our kids and to minimize any type of increased exposure during the school day, in which we ultimately have a greater level of liability and responsibility over the kids. We want to minimize visitors. The other piece of that is, this week we have had all of our events from our open houses and orientation nights and so forth, different than the transition nights that happened a few weeks ago. The in-person events were sparsely attended this week as compared to years past. Why? Maybe it is COVID related. Maybe folks are satisfied with the information that they're getting, but the in-person attendance was quite low. Next question: when kids get the common cold, how should this be handled? Congestion, coughs can last for days, sometimes a week or two. Sometimes students are being questioned by teachers because they have a stuffy nose and they sound congested. Yeah, they will. Because I think that's the world that we're living in right now. So again, I'll go back to the first question. We need to communicate. We need to make sure that we're talking to each other. If there's opportunities to get tested, I've had that come up, multiple times, even this week, where parents have had their children at home, and they've run out to have them COVID tested just to make sure what they're experiencing is not COVID related. And so again, just communicating with the teacher, with the health professionals in the school, and we will have to show some leniency and grace in regard to the attendance rules. Next question: in reference to COVID cases, who is tracing COVID positive students exposed, rate of acquired infection in the school following exposure? Now that really comes out to our nurses and our health professionals. Mrs. Sprouse does a lot of that in conjunction with the nurses, and then we communicate with the county, and then ultimately with the principals communicate with me. Letters get sent. So all that's happening internally. It's been handled exceptionally well. I'm very proud of the folks and the work that they are doing. And the last question is really related to Allegheny County, maybe a little bit of a bigger picture. Is there a place that Allegheny County school districts are publicly sharing this data for transparency to determine whether the spread is happening in schools, in the community, in efforts to make progress towards normalcy? Has the state or county or district discussed or devised any threshold of transmission within school numbers for mask use to be proven as beneficial, or if it's unnecessary? Again, we track that data constantly internally. If there's a place that it's publicly shared, I'm not aware of that. We have our internal tracking documents, and since most of that information includes health records, it will not be publicly shared. But I will share trends, and as I've done today, I'll share weekly trends with you, happening in classrooms, cafeterias, community sports, and I think there's enough information there that we can continue to make adjustments that we need to make. The county does give us an update every Thursday afternoon at 2:00. We are on a call with community leaders, so superintendents, CTC directors, and other folks, along with the county health department officials. They give us the updates. I'll share that that slide deck with you today. It's not district specific. It's just what trends are happening in Allegheny County and with what age groups. And so that'll be part of the notes as they come out today. But is there any specific threshold of transmission within a school? We're looking as to, when the case is, when we can be out of high or substantial, we can get back into a moderate level. I know that's more of a county type of designation, but we're really looking at those types of things, and we will follow the guidance from Allegheny County Health Department. Like them, don't like them, doesn't matter. We're blessed to have a county health department that's so responsive to the needs within a county, because there are many counties across the state that do not have a county health department, and they're really at the mercy of communicating with the Pennsylvania Health Department. And what I've heard is the response time there is weeks, literally weeks to get information back because of how involved and how overwhelmed those groups are. So those are the questions for today. I'll just finish by saying thank you. The support that we've had, while we may have been disagreeing on some of the elements of what we're working through, masking and mask breaks and some of the other things, I do want to say thank you. I want to thank the parents, thank the kids for their willingness to work together to be part of the solution. Because while we've had our challenges, we're still in school. It's 5 days a week, and we're doing great things. And so continue to be kind. Show the grace that I know that we can. We were all in this together, and I do look forward to continuing this work with you. Thanks. Have a great weekend. Have a great week.